So how do I reactivate my starter? Well, I've got this jar that I used in my last recipe, okay? Basically, you can see it's just scrapings. Now, trust the process, I didn't believe it either. So once you've got an active starter, you can just use your empty jar. No need to hold on to loads of starter for no reason. I use about, what's this? 1/3 of a cup, okay? So how much flour you put in here depends on how much bread you want to bake. So you want to bake something with 200 grams of starter, you need to make sure that you're having at least 100 grams of the dry ingredients. So I usually only do a 500 gram loaf, so 100 odd grams is enough starter for me. So I find that 1/3 of a cup is enough, but it doesn't matter. If you end up with more, you can use it again, you can make other things with it, you can just chuck it, it's only a couple of pence. So I get some flour, shove it in there, woo, make a mess, always make a mess, okay? So I put that in there, you'll see that there's scrapings, it's dirty. So I do clean this out about once a week, but other than that, I just shove it in there. And then I put in just slightly less than the amount of flour that I put in, because I found that the dough, the starter in my house at least, because my house is always cold, works better if it's slightly less liquidy starter. So I just shove that in there. And then I get a fork, okay? I scrape as much of the dregs from the side, because that's got all the good stuff. And then I just give that a stir. Yeah, just give it a stir. You'll see what it looks like on the inside. So, if you look inside that now, it's really dry. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit more water. I like it a bit thinner than that. So again, it doesn't have to be precise. If I had to sit there and nurse a jar of starter like it was a 4th child, it's not going to happen. So there we go. So I've mixed it. Again, I think it's still a little bit too thick, so I'm just going to add a little bit more water. Safer to add a little bit at a time rather than a load, because then you're going to have to bung in more flour, and who's got time to be doing that? And give that a good mix. Okay, scrape it down again as much as you can. You can see, okay? You can do it with a spatula if you want. I just use the side of the fork, okay? So now you can see it's still quite thick. Look, it won't flop out. It's still quite thick, slightly thicker than pancake consistency, I would say. And that's it. So I then make a mental note of where it is, or sometimes I just draw a line with a Sharpie or do an elastic band or whatever makes you happy. Okay, now if this is giving you anxiety because it's all dirty, you do you clean your jar. That works for me. So I just do that. And then I put my little net over the top. I just put this little net over the top like that, and I leave it on my counter overnight. And then hopefully it will have doubled by tomorrow. So it usually gets to about here, and then it's ready to use. And that's it. That's about as much faff as I'm gonna do. There she is. She just sits there on my counter like that until she's risen.